The city was a symphony of noise. Cars honked, people shouted, buildings scraped the sky. The hustle and bustle of daily life created a cacophony that was both overwhelming and strangely comforting. It was a place where dreams were built and shattered, where every corner held a story waiting to be told. Yet, in a forgotten corner, silence reigned. This part of the city was a stark contrast to the vibrant chaos just a few blocks away. Here, time seemed to stand still, and the noise of the city faded into a distant memory. Dust gathered on forgotten cobblestones. These streets, once bustling with life, now lay abandoned and neglected. The cobblestones, worn smooth by countless footsteps, were now covered in a thick layer of dust, a testament to the passage of time. The air hung heavy with the past. It was as if the very atmosphere was saturated with memories, each particle of dust a fragment of a story long forgotten. The silence was almost tangible, wrapping around the alley like a shroud. This was where Arav existed, a shadow amidst shadows. He was a part of this forgotten world, a ghost in a city that had moved on without him. His presence was barely noticed, his existence a mere whisper in the grand symphony of the city. He was a street musician, his life a melody lost in the cacophony. Every day he played his heart out, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear the music beneath the noise. His songs were filled with longing and sorrow, a reflection of his own life. His instrument, a battered old guitar, barely held a tune. It was a relic of better days, its strings frayed and its body scarred. Yet in Arav's hands it still sang, its voice a haunting echo of the past. He played for scraps, for a kind word, for a moment of connection in the indifferent city. Each coin tossed into his hat was a lifeline, a small acknowledgement of his existence. But more than the money, he craved the fleeting moments of human connection, the brief smiles and nods that reminded him he was not entirely invisible. Each note was a prayer, a yearning for something more. His music was his way of reaching out, of trying to bridge the gap between his lonely world and the bustling life around him. Every chord he struck was filled with hope and desperation, a plea for someone to truly hear him. One day, drawn by an unseen force, Arav wandered into a dusty antique shop. It was a place he had passed by countless times but never entered. Today, something compelled him to step inside, as if an invisible hand was guiding him. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten dreams. The shop was a treasure trove of memories, each item a relic of a bygone era. The shelves were lined with objects that had once been cherished, now gathering dust in the dim light. He ran a hand along a shelf, his fingers tracing the outlines of forgotten treasures. His heart quickened. He felt a presence. It was as if the objects themselves were whispering to him, their stories begging to be heard. His fingers brushed against a variety of items, each one sparking a flicker of recognition, a connection to the past. There, nestled amongst tarnished silver and yellowed books lay a flute. It was an unassuming instrument, almost hidden among the other items. Yet it seemed to call out to him, its presence impossible to ignore. It was crafted from dark wood polished smooth by time. The flute had an air of mystery about it, its surface gleaming softly in the dim light. It was clear that this was no ordinary instrument. It had a history, a story that was waiting to be uncovered. An inscription in a language he couldn't understand adorned its side. The characters were intricate and beautiful, their meaning lost to time. Yet, they seemed to pulse with a hidden energy, as if the flute itself was alive. It seemed to hum with an energy that both scared and beckoned him. Arav felt a strange connection to the flute, as if it was meant for him. He hesitated for a moment, then reached out and picked it up. As his fingers closed around the instrument, he felt a surge of warmth, a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. The city's forgotten melody was about to be rediscovered. The shopkeeper, a woman with eyes as old as the city itself, saw Arav eyeing the flute. Her gaze was intense, almost as if she could see into his very soul, understanding his deepest desires and fears. Her name was Mira, and her voice was a low whisper that seemed to weave through the cluttered shop. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and forgotten stories, each item in the shop holding a tale of its own. She spoke of the flute's origins, of a faraway land and a forgotten magic. Her words painted vivid images of ancient forests, hidden temples, and a time when magic was as real as the air we breathe. This flute, Mira said, her voice barely audible, it holds a power that has been both a blessing and a curse to those who have wielded it. It can heal, it can soothe, but it can also bring great sorrow if not used wisely. The balance of its magic is delicate, and the consequences of misuse can be dire. But it demands a price that is not always immediately apparent. The magic of the flute is tied to the very essence of the player, drawing from their spirit and life force. Her eyes held his, a warning in their depths. She wanted him to understand the gravity of what he was about to undertake. This was not just a simple purchase, it was a commitment, a bond with the unknown. Arav, captivated by the instrument and compelled by an unknown force, decided to buy the flute. He felt an inexplicable connection to it, as if it was calling out to him, promising both wonder and peril. He emptied his meager savings, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. The weight of Mira's words hung heavy in the air, but his curiosity and desire for the flute overpowered his caution. As he left the shop, flute in hand, Mira's warning echoed in his ears. The evening sky was painted with hues of orange and purple, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets of their own. The music heals, but the musician pays the price. These words reverberated in his mind, a constant reminder of the responsibility he now bore. That night, under the uncaring gaze of the city lights, Arav lifted the flute to his lips for the first time. The city, usually so loud and bustling, seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. The wood felt warm against his skin as if infused with a life of its own. It was smooth, yet there was a subtle vibration, a pulse that matched his own heartbeat. He closed his eyes and blew gently. The first note was soft, almost hesitant, but it carried a depth that resonated within him. The sound that emerged was like nothing he had ever heard. It was pure, ethereal, a melody that seemed to seep into the very soul of the city. Each note was a thread, weaving a tapestry of sound that enveloped him. It was pure, ethereal, a melody that seemed to seep into the very soul of the city. The music flowed like a river, carrying with it a sense of peace and tranquility that was almost palpable. The notes danced on the night air, weaving a spell of peace and tranquility that resonated deep within him. As he played, he felt a connection to something greater, something ancient and powerful. The city, the night, and the flute became one, and for a moment all was right in the world. Word of Arav's music spread like wildfire. It wasn't just the melody that captivated people, it was the profound emotion that each note carried. Arav's music was more than just sound. It was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness. His flute seemed to speak directly to the soul, resonating with the deepest parts of human experience. People drawn by an invisible force flocked to hear him play. They came from all walks of life, united by a shared longing for something greater, something transcendent. The streets buzzed with anticipation as they made their way to the venue, each step filled with hope and expectation. They came from the darkest corners of the city, their hearts heavy with burdens. These were people who had faced unimaginable hardships, whose lives were marked by sorrow and despair, yet they were drawn to Arav's music, seeking solace and a momentary escape from their troubles. The music washed over them, soothing their pain, mending their broken spirits. It was as if Arav's flute had the power to heal, to reach into the depths of their suffering and offer a balm for their wounds. The audience, once tense and weary, began to relax, their faces softening as the music enveloped them. A young woman, crippled by grief, found solace in the flute's melody. She had lost someone dear to her, and the weight of that loss had been unbearable. But as Arav played, she felt a sense of peace wash over her, the music gently guiding her through her sorrow. A hardened criminal felt tears stream down his face, the music awakening a long-dormant empathy. He had built walls around his heart, but Arav's music broke through, reminding him of his own humanity and the emotions he had tried so hard to suppress. A child, battling a life-threatening illness, smiled for the first time in weeks. The music brought a lightness to his heart, a joy that had been absent for so long. His parents watched in awe, grateful for the small miracle that Arav's music had brought into their lives. Arav played on, pouring his very essence into each note. He was lost in the music, his fingers moving effortlessly over the flute. Each performance was a piece of his soul, a gift to those who listened. He felt a deep connection to his audience, a bond forged through the shared experience of the music. He saw the light return to people's eyes, felt the weight lift from their shoulders. The transformation was palpable. The audience, once burdened by their struggles, now radiated with hope and joy. Arav's music had the power to change lives, to bring a sense of renewal and possibility. His heart swelled with a love for humanity he had never known. The connection he felt with his audience was profound, a shared understanding that transcended words. He realized that his music was a bridge, connecting him to the hearts and souls of those who listened. He was a vessel, the flute a conduit, channeling a power far greater than himself. Arav felt as though he was merely an instrument, through which a divine force flowed. The music was not his own, it was a gift, a blessing that he was privileged to share with the world. But with each note he played, Arav felt a change within himself. The music that brought so much joy to others began to take a toll on him. He felt a growing sense of emptiness, a void that the applause and admiration could not fill. It was as if he was giving away pieces of himself, leaving him increasingly hollow. A hollowness began to grow in his chest, a sense of emptiness that no amount of external validation could fill. Despite the adoration of his fans, Arav felt increasingly isolated. The more he gave, the more he felt he was losing himself. The music that once brought him joy now seemed to drain his very essence. He was giving a part of himself away with each performance, his life force slowly draining away. The energy and passion that once fueled his music were now being consumed by it. Arav realized that he needed to find a balance, to reclaim the parts of himself that he had given away. Only then could he continue to share his gift with the world without losing himself in the process. His reflection in the mirror grew fainter, his eyes losing their sparkle. His skin became paler, his touch lighter. He was fading, his physical form mirroring the sacrifice he was making with every note he played. He was becoming a ghost, a whisper of a man, sustained only by the power of the flute and the good he was doing. Fear gnawed at him. Was he willing to cease to exist for the sake of others? Was it his burden to bear, this gift that was slowly consuming him? The city, once a cacophony of indifference, now vibrated with gratitude for the young musician and his magical flute, but at what cost? The city was healing, but he was breaking. The melody of hope was his swan song. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. He was a savior, yet he was dying. He thought of Mira's warning. Her words, once enigmatic, now rang with a chilling clarity. The music heals, but the musician pays the price. He had become a prisoner of his gift, trapped in a cycle of healing and self-destruction.